Welcome to Whiskey's a Journey. My name is Peter Fasciano, and you're watching my channel segment on a Monday that is currently covering my single barrel bourbons. A couple of weeks ago, I did a single barrel blind flight. I ranked them, and the winner of that flight was moving on to the next round. In that flight, I did 6 single barrels. This is now the last single barrel that I did in that flight. So what are we looking at today? We're looking at a Wild Turkey release. This is going to be the Russell's Reserve. This is a single barrel. Just like always, let's go ahead and pour it, nose it, taste it, talk about it a little bit. And then if you stick around until the end, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a score. All right, so Russell's Reserve single barrel. This is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey coming in at 55% ABV, 110 proof. Right on the label, it says it is non-chill filtered. And something that I didn't know, Wild Turkey only has one mash bill for all of their whiskeys. 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. The Russell's Reserve single barrels are non-age stated, but based on the information that I got, they're somewhere between 9 and 10 years old. My bottle is a 750 milliliter bottle, and I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and at the time that I purchased this, it was $75.99. Let's go ahead and get this thing on the nose and tell you what I think. All right, I get a pretty good amount of sweet cherry. There is a little bit of spice right behind that cherry. I think it's a typical bourbon note with the brown sugar and the vanilla. And this is very strange. Something that I don't really necessarily get in whiskeys or bourbons. I have a slight amount of melon, a melon note. Not a cantaloupe or a watermelon, but a, what is that? The one that looks like a little green blue. It is, what the hell is it? Honeydew. That's what it is. Honeydew. So honeydew's a melon, right? So I'm picking up a little bit of a honeydew note. That's really weird. And when I think of honeydew, it kind of gives me a like a funky vibe, almost like molded fruit or something that has spoiled a little bit. It's not off-putting. I'm not getting like molded fruit in here, but there is a little bit of an earthy, kind of damp fruit note, if that makes any sense. Smells like honeydew. If you've smelled honeydew, that's what it smells like. But sometimes like cantaloupe gives you kind of a funky note to it. I'm not talking about that kind of funky note. I get some red berries and maybe red apple. There is spice in here, and I think that spiciness that I'm getting is very, very close to the amount of sweetness that I'm getting as well. It's probably cinnamon spice. That's what I would probably peg that as. All right, let's go ahead and get it on the palate. Oh, that is much thinner on the palate than I expected it to be. Not very viscous, seems to be a little bit watered down. All of that sweetness and the spice are still there, but I'm shocked at how thin this comes across, even at 55% ABV. That's very strange. I don't remember this drinking that thin, or at least the mouthfeel being that thin. All of the notes that I'm getting on the nose are also coming through on the palate, with the exception of that melon note. The cherries here, the cinnamon, it is spice. I get a lot of oak, some barrel tannin on the side of the tongue, brown sugar, vanilla, and all of those red berries. The cherries, the red berries, and even a little bit of a red apple. It's good, but I was shocked on how thin the viscosity was. Let's go ahead and get that second sip in, see if I can concentrate on anything else, talk a little bit about the finish. I'm gonna add water to it, and then talk about Russell's Reserve. All right, second sip, definitely a little bit more cherry forward. The cinnamon spice is there, those Christmas cooking spices are there. A really good amount of oak, the vanilla, the brown sugar, all of that is there. I would say this is very, very traditional as far as what you would expect a bourbon to taste like. I don't think this really goes, really crazy with those outlier notes. This is straight down the middle, exactly what you would think of as a bourbon, with the exception of there's a little bit more oak than most bourbons. And if this is somewhere around 9 to 10 years old, I'm surprised on how much oak is actually coming through on the palate. All right, just like always, I'm going to add a little bit of water just to change the profile a little bit, see if anything new comes out of the glass as I talk about it. There are some water soluble and non-water soluble particles in whiskey, and maybe adding a little bit of water will do something to it. I just want to see if it does change the profile. You know, it is your whiskey. Drink it however you want. Because of these reviews, I would like to be a little bit consistent, and all the whiskeys that I'm doing, I'm just going to add water to it. You don't have to. Drink the whiskey the way that you want. But before I actually start talking about this, I do want to talk about the finish. It's very oaky. It's a little bit drying. I do get a good amount of barrel tannin or barrel char on the side of the tongue. All of the sweetness pretty much has gone away, and I'm left with a little bit of a dry note. I would say that the finish is medium to long, but all of those fruit, sweet, spice notes are completely gone. And what I'm left with is oak, tobacco, and leather. If you like that kind of finish, I think this would definitely be right up your alley. I tend to be a little bit more on the sweet finish side with a touch of oak or a touch of dryness, maybe a touch of barrel bitterness on the side, but this is elevated quite a bit. And hey, it also could be just the day. I mean, I had this in my 6th bottle blind, and I don't remember it being this oaky and this dry, so it might be the day. So the information that I have for Russell's single barrel, based on the distillery, the Age of Wild Turkey, this is a relatively new addition to their lineup. Their single barrel program, or their single barrel Russell's Reserve, actually came out in 2015. And I mentioned earlier, I was surprised to hear that Wild Turkey, based on all the expressions that they have, only have one mash bill, the 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. And I'm surprised on how much variation they get within their whiskeys just having that one single mash bill, which kind of goes to the point that cooperage, barrel selection, age, proof, all of that has a say in what the actual whiskey tastes like. So I'm absolutely surprised at how much variation they have in their product lineup with only one mash bill. So kudos to them for actually putting out products and keeping the mash bill the same. All right, hopefully the water had a little bit of time to do its thing. Let's go ahead and get this thing on the nose, taste it one more time, and then give it a score. All right, on the nose, this is a cherry explosion now. I still get some sweetness with like the red berries, the caramel, the brown sugar. The spice has now taken a little bit of a back seat, which is interesting. Most of the time, whenever I add water to a whiskey, it seems to enhance the spice. But this time, it seems to enhance that cherry note. Not a medicinal cherry. This is actually a dark cherry note. I actually kind of like the way that it smells more with water than without. And that's pretty consistent with what I think my profiles tend to be. They tend to prefer a little bit of a sweeter note than a spicy note. And yeah, now going back into this, a little bit on that back end, I'm still getting that honeydew melon note. Boy, that is very strange. I've never really gotten that before in any bourbons or any whiskeys that I've had. All right, let's go ahead and get it on the palate. All right, there's that spice. Behind the spice, the cherry, the water thinned it out even more than it was at the beginning. There is absolutely no viscosity, no mouthfeel at all to actually really talk about. The barrel char and the barrel bitterness on the side of the tongue is now a little bit settled down. It's not as dominant or prominent. The cinnamon spice is there. Pretty easy drinker with the water. Not that it wasn't an easy drinker prior to adding the water. All right, one last sip and let's move on to the score. Yeah, this is good. Again, it's not going to wow you. I think it's basically straight down home plate as far as a bourbon goes. Maybe a touch on the oaky side. So if that's your thing, you're definitely going to like this. If you are new here, my scoring system is out of 5 stars. I am basing all of my Monday series single barrels off of the individual single barrels. I'm not comparing these to scotches or Irish whiskey or American single malts or the rye whiskeys. Everything that I give a score will be a score based on the single barrels. Because this glass is your typical bourbon, a little bit on the oaky side, that doesn't tend to be my profile. I like it a little bit sweeter. I don't think there's anything wrong with this pour. It offers exactly, I think, what you would imagine a typical bourbon would, with a little bit of elevated oak notes. And because of that, I'm going to give this just under 3.5. I would say 3.45. It's good. It's not great. It's not wowing me. Again, my profile tends to be a little bit more sweet than the spice and the oak. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below if you are a Russell's Reserve single barrel bourbon fan. Are you a Russell's fan in general? Do all those things that YouTubers ask you to do, like, subscribe, share, and definitely comment down below on your opinion with Russell's Reserve. I think I've pretty much exhausted everything. So wherever you are at in your journey, I hope you are enjoying it. And until the next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye.